Hey, what's going on, guys? This is going to be my out-of-box review for the Kotobukiya Raftclans Auran. I am assuming that that's pronounced correctly. Anyway, this is from Super Robot Wars OG Original Generations. It's a non-scale kit, and that is about all that I can tell you about it, really, technically, or anything. I've never played Super Robot Wars, or really don't really know much about that. I thought this was just a cool-looking mecha, and it turns out to be a very cool-looking kit as well, I must say. Even just straight out of the box, the color separation and all the details on everything on this look really, really cool. And as you'll see with the weapons, too, this thing comes with some really cool weapons and all that. So, a lot of really neat stuff about this kit to like. And so, as always, guys, huge thank you to SI Gundam Store for sponsoring this review. Check the link to their site down below and get everything there for 10% off using my coupon code. And that said, this kit is not cheap. If we're going to be talking about prices here, this kit is list priced at 8,800 yen, so $80 to $90 for that if you can get it like right around list price there, if you don't have to pay like a bunch of import fees and everything for it, because it's a relatively large size box too if you saw the unboxing. So it's not going to be a cheap kit, and it's relatively about the same size as a 1/100 scale Bandai Master Grade kit, so considering that, obviously it's going to be pretty expensive when you can probably get two master grades for about the same price. But is it really worth that price? Well, that's what we'll take a look at in this review. If you guys ever built any Kotobukiya kits before, you should have a pretty good idea of what to expect. They're not quite on the level of Bandai in terms of ease. They tend to take a little bit more glue here and there, a little bit more seam line removal here and there, and all of that, but you do have a lot of really nice detail on there. First up, what is included with the kit? Aside from these holding hands which are on here, you have another set of holding hands which have a kind of space in there which is made to directly fit the weapon handles for this, so this will be a little bit more strong to fit the weapon handles. The other one just seems like just kind of a general holding hand. If you wanted to use anything else with the kit, I think you might be able to use that for that. And that's really it for the hand options, unfortunately. I do wish that it did come with a few different other hand options. And then we have the shield, which is just really cool as it is, but it does also transform. Each of these 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers kind of like splays out, but it's like a parts forming thing. You have to use this part, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a minute. But it is really still a really cool shield just as it is. You have this sliding gimmick. The handle will slide up and down, so you can have that more out to the front. The handle itself will move side to side like that, so you can get a really easy grip on that, and then the handle will also move forward and back, so a lot of articulation built into the holding of this, and that is really cool. One thing that I'm having an issue with mine is, see, this finger on the side keeps wanting to stick up. It should be there like that, even, but it keeps wanting to stick up, and I tried switching these, the left and the right side. No matter what I do, this side sticks up, so it's not the problem with this part. It's something the problem with the connection inside there. If I press it all the way in, it will sort of stay down there closer, but it's, as you can see, it's still not even. It's still sticking up a little bit, so it's really weird. I don't really know, and I can't figure it out. I've been messing with it and trying. I took it apart and put it back together, and it's still just standing up like that, so I don't know what the problem is. But and then we have this giant rifle cannon thing, which is pretty awesome as well. And this also transforms, so I'll show you that in a bit. So this comes with a really big, cool shield that transforms and a really big, cool rifle which transforms too. This basically just kind of opens up, and then you turn it, and it becomes this big sort of like almost crossbow looking thing, like sort of like the Peacock Smasher that the Crossbone Gundam uses in a way. But you can like have this held like that by having the rifle handle pointed forward like that and using this as like a rifle, but then you can tilt the handle back like that and use this as a big giant sword with these big giant effect parts for this. And these effect parts are really great. Now the thing that I don't like about them, unfortunately, is that you can see this like part where that actually plugs into there through the effect part, but the rest of the effect part looks really nice. It's in this kind of like sparkly blue color, and it looks really good. And then aside from a couple little parts that you need, like for transforming the rifle and the shield, one other thing that you do get is this little bit here for the chest. I'm not exactly sure what this is, if it's just like some sort of gimmick of this, but it basically, it's sort of like the God Gundam, and you know how like the cockpit like sort of, or the chest hatch sort of opens up, and it basically does like that, except it's a parts forming thing. So you pull off this part here on the front, and then reattach the parts onto this new piece, and then plug that back in like that, and then it looks like that's open up. Now again, I don't know exactly what that is or what that's supposed to be, but it does that, so that's cool. Those of you guys who are more familiar with the property will know what that is, but either way, it looks cool. So let's talk a little bit about the articulation and details of this boy. So again, no stickers or anything for this, so all the little colors and everything you're seeing on that, that's all little tiny individual parts. So including all that little bit for the face, that's all parts, and the bright green, like fluorescent green parts there for the eyes, and these little bits there on the chest glow really brightly. So that's cool that those are represented there just in plastic. It's going to look really nice. Now real quick, concerning the seam lines I mentioned before, pretty much anywhere where you'd expect there might be a seam line, there's a seam line, unfortunately. Here on the top of the shoulder, there's a seam there. On these cannons here, kind of on the back of the shoulders, the seam lines going down the middle of there. On the top of the head, seam line down the middle of there. On the front of the legs, seam line down the middle of that. Little seam line on the front of the forearm there. Seam line all the way down the back of the forearm there. And then, of course, there's seam lines on the accessories as well. So there's a lot of them. Let's talk about the articulation. The head. It'll pretty much only go up to about there, which is barely looking up at all. And then down to there, which is not bad. It's fine. It's not really anything too great, but it's okay. These cannons, which I mentioned on the back of the shoulders, which I believe are cannons anyway, those will just move forward like so. You can't rotate them at all, so just moving forward and back is the only thing that those are really going to do. But it's a cool thing, a little addition that those are also just mounted to the back side of the shoulders too, not onto the backpack or anything else. It's just there on the back of the shoulders. Pretty cool. As for the shoulder articulation, it's really not going to have too much movement forward and back. That said, you can move this whole big thing up, but as you can see, this cannon, without that being able to rotate, that's going to be kind of crashing into the giant bunny ears on this a little bit. But you've got space between there for the arm to come up in between, but it's still only going to be able to come up to about 90 degrees there, and that's about it. Otherwise, the arm is going to rotate there at the top, and then bend here at the elbow with just a single joint, giving you just a little bit more than 90 degrees. And then the hand is just on a peg, so no ball joint, it's just on a straight peg there, so you'll just be able to rotate that, and that's all. So while the articulation is a little bit lacking in the arms, it does make up for that a little bit here in the stomach with a little bit more than you'd expect, probably. Forward and back is quite good, the articulation there. Back really far, forward really far. Side to side also quite nice, sideways all the way to there and there, pretty dang good. And then rotation, of course. These long extended front skirts will just move up like so, no problems there. And again, really nice part separation with a little bit of gray poking out, a little bit of yellow poking out, the white trim on that, all being all separate parts. These side skirt bits will also be able to move up a little bit. They're kind of stiff though, so just be a little bit careful about that, but that will definitely allow you to bring the leg up farther out to the side there. And then this big, almost kind of Kshatriya-esque back skirt will move up and down a little bit here as well, like so. So as mentioned, when you lift that side skirt out of the way, you can get the leg out pretty far to the side and then forward pretty far there as well. You've got a double joint in the knee for a pretty good knee bend there, not bad at all. And then some rotation there at the top of the leg as well, so you can move that around side to side as you need. Down here at the ankles, those will move side to side pretty well, also quite stiff, so again, just be a little bit careful about this stuff. And then forward, really kind of nothing at all. And then backward as well, just a little bit, but then you can move the toe down for a little bit further extension from that. Very cool. And then up underneath the feet, some nice detail, including a little thruster bell in there as well. It's cool, all the little spikes, the spike little here, the one here, the one on the back of the forearm. It all makes for a really cool, interesting kind of design. Alright, so here we go. After some part swapping and some switch swapping, there you go. You get the shield opened up and it looks pretty cool. Very impressive display. A little bit finicky. Again, you will probably want to glue a few parts here and there if you want. The problem is with this being a part of the kit that transforms, you might not want to glue that if you ever want to be able to switch it back and forth between the open and closed form. But it is very cool, I have to say. Also, another quick thing that I forgot to mention before is that you do also get a sort of action-based adapter kind of thing for this. It basically has the really unique kind of like eye-shaped connection in the under the waist there, and then it turns that into just your standard 3mm peg hole adapter. And the problem with that is that if you get this kit off balance, it's going to tilt to one side and kind of fall off of that. So it's, again, the same problem of having a little bit slightly heavy kit on a round peg. Doesn't really work. And so, again, you might just want to glue something like that if you're going to be having this on an action base permanently. Alright, so here it is with those giant effect parts added onto an already very, very large weapon. And so obviously it's going to make it very heavy. Now, of course, I'm using a Bandai Action Base 5 here with this Kotobukiya kit. You could use a Kotobukiya Action Base. Doesn't really matter, but in any rate, you will need some sort of extra arm to hold up. Whether it's a second Action Base entirely or a little extra arm that like what I'm using here to help hold up the weapon, because there's no way. I mean, the joints on this kit are pretty strong. I think it could hold a fair amount of weight with no problem, but this thing is just way too heavy, so you are going to need some sort of extra support to be able to hold that in any sort of action pose. And even what I've got it in here is just kind of like holding it. It's not really even doing really anything too much with it, but it's going to limit your ability to pose with that giant weapon a little bit, but still, it's pretty impressive. I mean, having this up on the shelf, even in just a kind of fairly simple pose like this, is definitely still going to draw some attention. It's a very, very cool looking weapon, just being so giant and with those huge blue effect parts on it. And then here's a look at it using the opened up version of the rifle. It's a pretty cool two-handed grip. I forgot to mention before, there's actually a second grip at the base of the giant handle of that giant sword rifle thing that folds out, so you're able to two-hand grip that pretty solidly. The other thing that I also forgot to mention about the hand options is that not only is like the hand a little bit molded differently, also the angle of the wrist. One set of holding hands is just a straight plug, and the other hands have a slight bend at the wrist there, so you're able to hold this pretty well. It actually is quite solid. I was a little bit worried it wouldn't really be able to hold it pretty well, but it does seem to be holding it pretty nicely. I'm not really too into this sort of weapon, but it is pretty cool for any of you guys to do like this sort of thing. Again, just another aspect of this kit that I think will make it pretty eye-catching with just being such a big giant weapon like that, and a pretty unique one. And just for one last pose attempt here, I wanted to try the rifle just in basic rifle mode. And it's not really as basic or as simple as you might think. Once again, we've got some weight issues there. And I was actually having some more trouble with this, just the rifle, just in regular rifle mode here, than the other poses. Just because I was trying to do some sort of like firing pose, and it's just kind of hard and awkward just because of the big shape of the kind of parts sticking out the top and bottom of it. But still a very cool and impressive looking weapon for sure, and you can get it posed in some certain ways if you want, just by tightening the joints or using a secondary stand or something, of course, if you want. But overall, the functionality of everything is all there. Everything works really well, and you've got just so many different options with the different weapons and between the big giant rifle and the shield and the different modes that they take. And just all the detail and all the part separation, everything of this kit is fantastic. So coming back to what we talked about in the very beginning, is this worth the price? It's debatable, really, to be honest. It is a really super cool kit, but $90 for the kit is pretty pricey. That's not too out of the ordinary for a Kotobukiya kit though, so it really isn't surprising, but it is going to be a pretty pricey kit. That said, if you guys think that this looks cool, and I imagine you probably do, then, look into it. But anyway, I hope this review was helpful for any of you guys who are maybe interested in this sort of thing. If you're looking for something different, it's something worth checking out. If you guys have any other further questions or comments, do feel free to leave those down below. I'm sure those of you guys who are more familiar with Super Robot Wars will give me plenty of more information there in the comments. So thank you in advance for that. And as always, guys, thank you just so much for watching. Thank you to USA Gundam Store for sponsoring the review, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Hey! Thanks for watching, guys. Remember, if you want to check the kit out for yourself, you can head over to USA Gundam Store. Use that coupon code ZakuAurelius10. Save yourself 10%. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. Bye-bye.